Greta Haas, Government Affairs Director with the Iowa Association of Realtors, here with Rochelle, Burnett, one of our IAR instructors and a realtor here in the Des Moines Metro. We're here to answer your burning questions about the proposed NAR settlement, buyer agreements, the new Real Estate Transparency Act. So let's jump right in. A lot of the questions we have been seeing are regarding the new exclusive buyer agreement. And so there are some situations where you may need to make some amendments to the buyer agreement, whether that be compensation or other terms. So can you talk a little bit about those scenarios and what that may look like?
I can see that happening a lot, actually. I can't say percentages, right? So we're talking about apples or
yes, bananas.
Okay, and so I can see this happening a lot because essentially on that buyer agreement, whatever you put on there is also needs to be reflected at closing time as the same dollar amount. And sometimes our compensation changes partway through a transaction, so there may be times to amend it. So let's say you have sat down with a buyer and you've discussed compensation of 5,000 chocolate chip cookies, which by the way, I'd totally work for cookies.
So would I.
And so we've decided my compensation is 5,000 chocolate chip cookies. And then I find out from the listing agent that the seller is willing to pay 3,000 chocolate chip cookies. So there's potential at that time where I could just work for the 3,000 chocolate chip cookies, or my buyer makes up the difference of the 2,000 chocolate chip cookies to total 5,000 chocolate chip cookies. And so that would actually involve the commission division agreement because you'd have compensation coming from two different parties. Mm-hmm. So we would need to identify how you're getting paid from two different parties, both the buyer and the seller. And then I guess if that totals the 5,000 chocolate chip cookies on the buyer agreement, you're fine. However, let's say in the scenario where the listing agent says we are paying 3,000 chocolate chip cookies, and I say I'm fine with 3,000 chocolate chip cookies because, I'm watching my waistline. So then I would need to amend that buyer agreement to now say only 3,000 chocolate chip cookies because I agreed to 5,000, but now I'm agreeing to 3,000. Then that would need to be amended. There's also the scenario where I may call the seller and the seller says, we're paying 6,000 chocolate chip cookies, yay. And in that case, I would have to call my buyer and say, are you okay with me now making more? Are you okay with that? And if so, we need to sign off on it. Okay, so whether you're getting compensation from a couple of different parties, the buyer and the seller, that needs to be addressed on a specific form and talk to your broker about what that form is. Or if you're getting paid less than what you agreed to, you need to amend it. If you're getting paid more than what you agreed to, you need to amend it. Because in the end, whatever you got paid needed to match what you put on the EBA. And I can see that happening a lot.
Absolutely, yep.
And would you prefer that be on an amendment to the buyer agreement, or can we cross it out and initial it?
Amendment is typically the preferred way, but as long as the signatures of all parties are affirming it, it should be just fine legally.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing quick to note is, especially since this is a term of the NAR proposed settlement, if you have an amount set in your buyer agreement and you are offered something higher, you do need to renegotiate that higher price and get it signed off. Otherwise, that amount stipulated in that buyer agreement, the lower amount, is all that you're able to receive. So NAR settlement stipulates you cannot receive anything higher than outlined in that contract.
Without discussing it with your buyer.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you.